Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, I am Dr. Khurram Shahzad. Today we are going to talk about discourse historical approach. As you know that we have already covered Fairclough's dialectical reasoning or dialectical relational model of critical discourse analysis. We have also covered socio-cognitive model of critical discourse analysis. Today we are going to talk about discourse historical approach. Now, students ask me the question that what is the difference between these approaches? Remember, there are so many commonalities because all these approaches are working under critical discourse analysis. And in critical discourse analysis, we talk about emancipation, we talk about power relations, we talk about racism, we talk about discrimination, we talk about exploitation. So it means that all of these things we are going to cover in all kinds of approaches related to critical discourse analysis. In critical discourse analysis, the job of the analyst or the researcher is to take a stance that how he or she is going to analyze the text, what is his or her agenda, and how he or she has collected the data, or what kind of methodology he or she is going to adopt to carry out the analysis. Critical in critical discourse analysis, of course, critical historical approach, discourse historical approach is given by Ruth Wodak. She is a professor and chair of discourse studies at Lancaster University, UK. We should remember that this discourse approach is also known as socio-linguistic approach to critical discourse analysis. This discourse historical approach was introduced in Vienna School of Discourse Analysis, and particularly in 1990s she was working on the constitution of anti-Semitism, and she termed, when she developed her critical approach, she termed it discourse historical method. So, as I have told you, that you will find so many commonalities in all these approaches because they are working under the nomenclature of critical discourse analysis. So there will be more and more similarities and less of the dissimilarities that one can find. In Fairclough's approach, we have seen that discourse, it has got relationship with society, how it is working in society, how power is made use of, how power is abused, how discrimination is produced, how when people who are in the center they are manipulating the power, so people who are on the periphery, they are the people who are suffering from this power. We should also remember that in socio-cognitive approach, Van Dyke, he was saying that there is discourse and there is society, and these two things are interfaced by cognition. So cognition was in the middle and some sort of triangle was created between discourse and society, because when discourse is produced, it is conceptualized here, and of course discourse is produced in the society. Therefore, the interface of cognition played a very important role in socio-cognitive approach to critical discourse analysis. Now, historical here denotes an attempt on the part of approach which aims to integrate systematically all available background information in the analysis and interpretation of many layers of a written or spoken text. The first study for which DHA was developed analyzed the constitution of anti-Semitic stereotyped images as they emerged in public discourses in the 1986 Austrian presidential campaign of former UN General Secretary Kurt, who for a long time had kept secret his National Socialist past. It does not mean that we are just doing the analysis related to the events which happened in the history or distant history. It also means that the subjects which are under investigation, the text or talk that you have taken for the analysis, they can be very recent texts or talks, because you can take the speeches of the Prime Minister of Pakistan, you can take the speeches of the President of United States of America, and you can analyze them. It is the researcher's task, researcher's job to select the model according to his or her needs. And of course, these decisions that the researcher is making, they are very much subjective. So you should remember that you are making subjective decisions, but at the same time, when you are using a model, so you are not, you are using a model and you are creating a distance between the text or the talk and yourself. So your approach is not very much subjective. Your decisions are subjective, but your approach is not subjective, because you are following, you are using the models given by some of the theorists or some of the philosophers or some of the linguists. So according to Ruth Wodak, we will have to see that what is the historical background of the discourse that we are analyzing or that we intend to analyze. For example, the concept of Riyasat-e-Madina, which is introduced by the ex-Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, we can analyze, we can see that what kind of agenda, what kind of perspective he is trying to present in front of the people. Now, the concept of Riyasat-e-Madina is discursively produced in the text, is discursively produced in the books. And when we hear some stories from our elders, from our grandparents, that how Riyasat-e-Madina, it worked in the times of the Holy Prophet and in the times of the Khulafai Rashidin. So there was justice, there was, no discrimination, there was all kinds of good things that one can think of, and this is how this concept of Riyasat-e-Madina is discursively produced in the text or the talk. Now, when we hear the concept of Riyasat-e-Madina and when we listen to our elders, they are talking about the Holy Prophet and they are talking about the Khulafai Rashidin, that how they enacted discourse, how they enacted different kinds of institutions, how they established different kinds of institutions, how law was working, how code was working, how different other institutions they were working and performing their job, we realize that it was the best of the times. And it means that they create a very marvelous picture, very good images of the Riyasat-e-Madina in their discourse. And it is produced, it is enacted, it is presented to us with beautiful images in discursively in text and talk. So when politicians, they exploit the concept of Riyasat-e-Madina, they are creating the same image in the mind of the people. Now we are 1400 years after, okay, from that time period, we are trying to understand, we are trying to analyze the concept of Riyasat-e-Madina. So this is how historically we will have to see that discourse was produced in the past, constitution or institutions they were working in the past, and role of the leaders Okay, it was determined in the past, and we should try to emulate them, we should try to copy them, we should have the same kind of leaders in Pakistan today, and they should enact, they should act, they should react, they should produce, they should reproduce, and they should constitute the same kind of society in Pakistan today. So this is how you can trace out different concepts, different metaphors, different similes, and how these ideas, these people, they are presenting today. So CDA, according to Wodak, highlights the substantively linguistic and discursive nature of social relation of power in contemporary societies. So your approach is historical. You are working on the text, you are working on the language which is produced in the text. You are trying to understand the kinds of nominalizations which have been used, the kinds of verbs, verb processes which have been used discursively in the text or the talk. Then what kinds of adjectives have been used with those kinds of social actors, human beings, how they were working as social actors. What kind of verbs are being used with those social actors? What kinds of adjectives are being used with those social actors? How the event is produced, how the event is represented discursively in the text and talk. This is very important to understand. You will have to again look into the text. You will have to go for close reading of the text. You will have to read and reread the text, so that you should be able to analyze that how discursively power is produced, how discursively power is manipulated. These days, this is partly the matter of power relations. They are exercised and negotiated in discourse. It is fruitful to look at both power in discourse and power over discourse in these dynamic terms. CDA is not homogeneous theory with a set of clear and defined tools. Rather, it is a research program with many facets and numerous different theoretical and methodological approaches. We know that Fairclough uses the concepts of Foucauldian concepts of power and how institutions they are producing power. Then Van Dyck, he was also bringing in the concepts of Foucault, and Ruth Wodak, she also brings in the concepts from Foucault and Derrida. She is of the point of view that when we are reading the text, we should try to understand that how it is being produced. What kind of similes and metaphors and linguistic items or properties of language they have been used in the text. So CDA takes its tools from various subjects and disciplines. It takes its tools of analysis from conversation analysis. It takes its tools of analysis from pragmatics, because language is used in the society, language is used in the setting, in the context. Language cannot be produced out of the context. So the role of context is very important. The role of pragmatics is very important. How language is manipulated. What is the relationship between form and function? What the form is saying and what kind of role that form is performing. What kind of function that form is performing. And of course, in pragmatics, sometimes we say something else and we mean something else. So there is no one-on-one relationship between form and function. But sometimes the form and function, they are the same. So when you are reading the text, when you are going for the close reading of the text, you will have to see that how language is used pragmatically. There is no need to define ideology again. Okay, we know that what is ideology. It is usually a one-sided perspective because it is personal. We have group ideologies, we have personal ideologies, we have national ideologies. So sometimes ideology is very personal and it is one-sided. It is composed of related mental representations, convictions, opinions, attitudes, and evaluations. Ideologies are shared by the members of specific social groups. Ideologies serve as an important means of establishing and maintaining an unequal power relations through discourse. So Islamic ideology is the hallmark of Pakistani politicians. In their speeches, time and again, you will see Islamic ideology is there. Now, the interpretation of Islam is also very different. So they make use of Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'in. They make use of, ये थोड़ा सा Islamic touch दें, and the kinds of adjectives that they are using with these other political leaders against their opponents because they do not like them. So look at the language, Ganje Bradran. Look at the language, Fitna Khan. So all these things are so bad, and they show that how degraded they feel about about their opponents, how contemptuous they feel about their opponents. So the kinds of adjectives that they are using with these people and kinds of work processes that they are using with these people, okay, and then they project their ideology through their discourse because they are powerful people. When they are on the stage, the whole media is showing them, the whole media is broadcasting their speech because people would love to see their leaders. So they present their ideology, they use power, they exploit language, and they bring the ideas from the past, they bring the ideas from the era of the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and they bring in the concept of Riyasat-e-Madina. Now, we should also remember the concept of critique. There are three concepts of critique according to Ruth Wodak. Text or discourse immanent critique. It aims at discovering inconsistencies, contradictions, paradoxes, and dilemmas in the text internal or discourse internal structures. These ideas are coming from Derrida. These ideas were presented by Derrida. And Derrida says, within the text, you will find inconsistencies. Within the text, you will find paradoxes. Within the text, you will find contradictions. So today, if you listen to our political leaders, you will find within their discourse, there are contradictions. Within their discourse, text internal structures, there are inconsistencies. Then there is socio-diagnostic critique. It is concerned with demystifying the manifest or latent, persuasive or manipulative character of discursive practices. Manifest or latent. Sometimes we quote and we put inverted commas, so that is manifest, clear intertextuality. And sometimes the ideas are coming from some other people, but words are our own. So we use latent intertextuality. Okay. So we will have to see that in discursive practices, how discourses they are being used, how discourses they are being manipulated, how they are enacting the people, enacting the events, how agency is created, how other people's agency is created, how we make use of our contextual knowledge. We also draw on social theories and other theoretical models from various disciplines to interpret the discursive events. And then last one, third one is future related prospective critique. It seeks to contribute to the improvement of communication. So we will have to see that how discourse, because it is constitutive of power, it is constitutive of other discourses. It shapes our relationship, it shapes our identity, it shapes our ideology. How different political leaders and different texts that we are analyzing, they are constituting the events overall, how they are constituting the social processes, okay, enacting the social events overall. So the element of history cannot be eliminated, rather it will be focused in discourse historical approach to critical discourse analysis. Now there are levels of analysis. For example, first of all, the linguistic analysis will be carried out. You will have to see that how language is being manipulated, what kinds of nouns and verbs, adjectives and adverbs they have been used, what kind of references are there, okay, how cohesion and coherence are created in the text, what kind of anaphoric and cataphoric references have been used, how polysemy, how synonymy, how antonymy, all these lexical items have been used. Then intertextual and interdiscursive relationship between utterances, text and genres and discourses, you will have to analyze. Then extra linguistic social variables and institutional frames of a specific context of situation you will have to analyze. So social variables, the concept of ideology, the concept of power, the concept of institution, how they are working, how they are manipulating discourse, how they are discursively producing discourse, how they are shaping the society, how they are shaping the discourse itself. And then broader level of socio-political and historical context, that the words, the metaphors, the similes, the synecdoche, the metonymy, all these linguistic, devices, how the author, the speaker is making use of, and relating them for their opponents, and relating them with the characters which are given in the text, how they have been embedded in the text, what are their semantic meanings, what are their social meanings, what are their cognitive meanings, what else you can relate with certain words. For example, fitna khan, the word fitna is something bad, someone who is creating fitna, someone who is creating problems in the society. No one would like it, no one would like that person. So these are the strategies that DHA, Discourse Historical Approach, uses: referential nomination, discursive construction of social actors, the subjects, the pronouns which have been used in the text, how they have been discursively constructed, the whole phenomena, the verbal processes, events, they have been constructed and they have been presented. Is there any balance, or they have been stereotypically presented? Predication, discursive qualification of social actors, objects, phenomena, and events. What kinds of adjectives and adverbs have been used with those social actors, or with the social, or with the work processes? Justification and classification of claims of truth and normative rightness. So they bring in religion to give justification to whatever they are saying, the claims that they are making. They bring the ideas from religion to support them, to make it truthful to the people, to tell them categorically that whatever they are saying, they are right. Positioning of the speaker and writer's point of view, it is very important. As a critical discourse analyst, you will also have to take a position on the subject which is under discussion, and what is the position taken by the speaker, what is the position taken by the writer in the text. This is very important. What kind of worldview the text is presenting, and then what is the worldview of the discourse analyst, modifying the illocutionary force and thus the epistemic and deontic status of utterance. Now this is very important. Modal auxiliary verbs, how they have been used, because there are two types of modal auxiliary verbs, epistemic and deontic. So we need to understand the difference between epistemic and deontic modal auxiliary verbs, and sometimes it is very difficult to differentiate between epistemic and deontic modal auxiliary verbs. Both of them, for example, must can be used epistemically as well as deontically. We will have to see the context, that what kind of context is used, how the author or the writer is making use of that context and producing the text or talk. So these are some of the important things that we have talked about today. Now I would like to recapture. There are different approaches to critical discourse analysis. Van Dyke's socio-cognitive approach, Fairclough's 3D model approach, or discourse historical approach presented by Ruth Wodak. In socio-cognitive approach, cognition plays a very important role. In discourse historical approach, historical analysis plays a very important role. Thank you very much.